Dr. Rahul. Thank you for speaking to KRC Times. And I would start with, as an entrepreneur, with your rich experience working with the governments, how do you see the northeastern state should strategize their development policies?
A very good morning to the whole of Imphal. It makes me sad that I get back to my grind in Delhi this afternoon. Yeah, on your question, I mean, you see, I do not need to reinvent the wheel. Taking cue from my association with the Government of Sikkim, and also having done a small stint with the Andaman and Nicobar Islands with the Lieutenant Governor, what I get to understand is that all we need to put in place is already a study schema that has been done and operationalized at various parts of Northeast for years together. For years together, since 2015 to be specific. Now, see, there is a paper that was submitted by Professor Pura Kayastha of Gujarat State Petronet with the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs, particularly focusing on Northeast and its development areas and the prioritization thereof. He spoke about agriculture, agricultural commodities, he spoke about handloom, he spoke about cut stones, he spoke about, cut flowers, I correct myself. He spoke about limestones and semi-precious stones and everything in tandem. He also spoke about the policy-making bodies at the center and at the state levels working towards, building capacity amongst the youth, the MSMEs. I would put it this way, with my experience having worked in Sikkim, the first example for me is on handlooms, and thereafter I'll probably prioritize on hydropower. See, handloom, if you see the handloom industry and especially the monopolization, I won't call it monopolization because that's not probably a politically correct word, and the way it has been actually done in a very lion's share of a major way in terms of the the chunk of the economics is on the northeast side, handlooms. And we have handlooms across India. So just to give you basic facts, the handloom industry is slated to grow to around 300 billion USD dollars by 2026. As part of the jury of EFL, which is Eastern Fashion and Lifestyle Awards, I was, a part of a decision-making committee on trying to put in funds for people who had participated there by way of fashion models, by way of handloom textile designers, by way of big brands who have come in. So the thing that I was talking about is that 96% of the handloom products in the world are produced by India. India is number one in cotton producing, and is second in silk. The CAGR growth of handloom industry is around 12%, 12 to 13%, if I stand corrected. It contributes around 5% of India's GDP and around 18% of the industrial output. Now, what does that bring to us? I mean, these are all basic statistics. It means that there is a potential which has not been optimized. Now, let me also bring in another attribute which actually brings a lot of meaning to Northeast and especially Manipur. So, we have the Femina Queen pageant award that's being hosted every year in Manipur, and you send in a lot of winners from the state to the Miss India contest, and we have had legacies and citations where Manipuri participants have won awards for themselves and have made the state proud and also made India proud in the long run. Now, if you see FDCI, Federation Development Council of India, now they work in tandem with the Ministry of Textiles, and they put in a lot of funds that have been, which is basically by way of a re-subsidization or a refinancing, which is put by Ministry of Textiles. There's already a paper in place. So we did a small patch of work in Sikkim where the Sikkim lepcha fabric was to a large extent monetized and financed by the Ministry of Textiles and FDCI. Now, who actually spoke on behalf of Sikkim? Nobody else but MSMEs like us. I headed IBM India South Asia for donkey's years once upon a time. I'm an entrepreneur by choice now. But then I took that whole notion and idea back to the center. The files are already in place. Policies and procedures in India are very cogent. You don't need to do anything new. Just taking advantage of all the big ideations that have happened in the long run. And today, Sikkim lepcha fabric finds a signature place in the handloom industry, both for fashion as well as for produce. So the handloom industry in Manipur needs to take cue from the Sikkim example and be part of that FDSI, and what best but the pageants, but the winners in the pageant contest at the state level being the ambassadors for the MSME units, including the state government, where they say, right. So you see, I'll give you a small puny, a small nice example, very, very powerful example. You have this fish embroidery on all Manipuri handlooms. Now that should be made as part of one event, as part of Miss India, if you put it that way, where the Manipuri handlooms are being projected by the designers. And so, the like I talked about, the 250 and 300 billion dollars of worth of exports and the revenue generated by that. If you see the skewness and cutoffs of it, you will see at least 15% of that revenue comes from precision selling, comes from fashion, comes from designs, comes from the niche areas of the states that boast of what they do. So I see a lot happening on the handloom for Manipur. If we actually ride the wave of today's boom in the economy in this sector, in this vertical, including Minister of Textiles policy, I will myself put in a word when I go back, because I already have a white paper, not a white paper, I already have a study paper and a paper full of statistics for Manipur handloom. So this is number one. Coming back to your question, number two would be, not too many people have delved on the hydropower situation. Manipur, the techno engineers have now certified that is capable of producing around 2000 megawatts of power. The largest hydropower in India is on river Satluj in Himachal. Nakha Chopra, I think they call it that. Now, I think Manireed and MNRI for the hydropower. Manireed is basically Ministry of Renewable Energy, and for hydropower, they put in some funds. At the state level, sorry, is MNRI, Renewable Energy. And Manireed is the Sikkim, Manipur body. Manireda. Manireda is a Sikkim body, Manipur body. Now, it is just not on hydropower, which is costing you 2 lakhs per megawatt of production of hydropower. So it's in thousands and thousands of crores. More around the tertiary service areas of hydropower. So there are DPRs to be given. There are lands to be allocated. So you have the heights. And then the strategy, the concept notes. So Manireda has earmarked consultants, Manipuri youths, to be part of the projects that you identify. You have already identified 7-8 projects. I do not have all the specifics across the state where hydropower is going to be your own. I mean, how to put it, a powerful area of production of energy. Manipur is short on electricity. You purchase through grids, but today, I think you would be selling. At the end of the day, you would be electricity positive, and electricity can neither be stored. You may know that. So it's a high cash crop kind of a thing. Everybody needs that. Industrialization is basically a conclusive theory, not practicals. If you have good power, anything and everything is possible. So I see hydropower. I see animation center, which again we did for Sikkim. And this is riding on the knowledge capital of the youth of Manipur. They don't need to go to Bangalore, or they don't need to go to Delhi, or they don't need to go to Calcutta, Sector 5, the software hubs. They can work from home. The WFH concept, necessity is the mother of invention, they put it, which actually was born out of the COVID era, when people could not go to office and the brick and mortar theory was completely thrown to the winds. So we can have the animation centers under MSME funding. MSME has funded numerous projects across Northeast. Now this is something which Manipur, the state government can look into and form 2-3 animation centers where people can, the job would be offloaded all the way from Mumbai film industry. You do hell of a lot of work, you do your own AVIs, you do designs, you do. So it's a world where, the customers are virtual. You just don't need somebody, some industrialist around Manipur who would be doing it. It can be a French guy, it can be the World Trade Organization Forum in Zurich who would need a few designs. And these are things, now we would be talking about how do we get the job. That is something by dint of the supply chain that's in place. That's number three. And number four, I would say, going back Purokai's paper, of course, yes, the agricultural commodity, Manipur's medical systems, which probably I will come back if you have a relevant question on that. But at the end of the day, if I'm talking about $250 and $50, I'm $50 billion on handloom. I can safely put that you have a 20 billion, even not that, even a $1 billion over a period of 18 months on handlooms if the things are put into place. The whole strategic document can be given by me because you already have that in place, and I've worked very closely with the Government of Sikkim. And before I conclude my answer to this specific question of yours, I would also say that I've interacted with the MP of Andaman Nicobar, and we did a lot. We are supposed to do a film festival there, which I talk about Manipur was part of additional plan, what a film festival can do for the state, which Sikkim has done, which the Andaman Nicobar Island Port Blair was supposed to be doing. We literally did a fantastic job in Sikkim. The whole of Bollywood had come in. So these are some things which has got a lot of econometrics in it. I'll give you the value additions in terms of the numbers and the way forward as part of, if you have anything else to say, or else probably we can talk about that right now.
Dr. Rahul Banerjee, as a consultative committee member of NDMA, Government of India, about disaster management, what is your research? How do you see Northeast should put in place parameters? What are the parameters you would suggest?
This exclamation actually, makes me feel and gives way to a chapter or probably a subject that we can talk for hours and for days. But we need to be very specific and get to a solution packet. So I was lucky enough to be appointed with the National Disaster Management Authority G20 when India took up the presidency last year on the disaster track. So there are multiple tracks, 12, 14 tracks. The disaster tracks communique came out as the signature communique, which was adopted by all the head states of the G20 countries, and there were invitees too, which also numbered equally. So around 40, 45 countries participated in New Delhi and across India through various working groups. Now you see, the communique came out with something very important on DRR financing. Now, what is DRR? Disaster Risk and Resilience. Now, you see, we go by the Sendai framework on what basically is disaster, what are the four pillars, and how the losses in lives, losses in capital, and the other two pillars, and what are the action areas, how we actually go about doing the same. Although I'm a chartered accountant by profession and having a PhD to my credit, I teach supply chain in the universities of America. Disaster is something that is like a satellite across every vertical. So there can be disaster in the office through fire. There can be disaster while you are in the hospitality sector having a lovely sunbathing on the beaches of Kalanguet in Goa. There can be disaster while you're at home when the floods affect you. There can be disaster when you're doing nothing, when you're sleeping and the earthquake strikes you. So there can be disaster on fire. So disaster is something which affects everybody across verticals, personal lives, professional lives, everywhere. So this is something where, I guess Manipur can be in the vanguard of all activities, taking into cognizance that Manipur faced the greatest of earthquakes in 2016, and there is a number of lists of disasters that Manipur has faced with resilience. The people are very brave, and I don't know whether for non-availability of timely actions or timely actions that came in but were not well defined during those years, Manipur would have behaved a little more strongly, in countering disaster. So the DRR finance talks about, and another point in place, which is very relevant today, is the floods that have happened in Manipur very recently. Now, if you see this, what I would like to talk about is that you have got around 185,000 people dislodged. You have got 20 to 30,000 houses, lives lost, and you have got so much happening in terms of the kind of disasters that have faced you. How did we actually react to it? Now, I would bring in the NDMA policies towards managing disasters across states, because this is basically a well-defined procedure where you will be funded, where the medical fraternities can come in, where career jobs will be put at rest in terms of trying to figure out whether they can be serendipity, where new areas of businesses can come in, where the early warning systems, whether Manipur youth can contribute to that. More specifically, what I would like to bring in as a National Disaster Management Authority's Consultative Committee member, having worked in the G20, is we also have a twin brother proposal or twin brother mission by the name of the National Bamboo Yojana. Now, nobody has put, they feel that there are two parallel lines. One is NDMA and countering disaster, and the other one is number of missions and number of projects that we have as part of this whole unity of India. So National Bamboo Mission has an outlay of a few triple figure or four figure crores to set up the bamboos, planting of bamboos, going into bamboo products. Again, that goes into the handloom. So it's all interwoven in terms of the definition of the economics. Now, bamboo has got something called a signature policy decision, a value addition by the name of climate change. So climate change, the name, the nomenclature has been specifically mentioned in the National Bamboo Policy, where they say that planting of bamboos and even engaging in the verticals of bamboo and bamboo products brings down the temperature. The climate is massively affected positively. National Disaster Management Authority and the DRR financing also talked about climate change finance. So the banks, the big banks in Paris, the big banks in Switzerland, the big banks in London have already appropriated huge amounts of pounds and dollars for climate change. Manipur can again write the signature leadership role of saying that my bamboo mission will get into bringing in climate change not only for my state but for the world at large, and also, and that means that you also get into the bamboo projects, which we'll talk about in a nutshell, in addition to this response of mine, and the national disaster management's response to the floods and the disasters that affect the state. What is in it for the state in terms of the economics? You have a NDMS cell formed here, the private people coming in, the bamboo mission being given a fillip, and what you do is that you use the bamboo mission projects to get your funds from IPRITI, get your funds from the National Bamboo Mission, get from MSME, get from the Ministry of Agriculture, all at all, and also get the climate change fund that has been appropriated by the G20 countries. How do I put it? Detoured, or probably get the climate change fund also, a portion of the fund getting its way into Manipur. And let me tell you, on the political side, you need to figure out whether it's a state list or a concurrent list. If it is neither of the two, then we have got to go through the whole rigmarole of the government processes, which is also not challenging in today's time. Me as an entrepreneur worked on the bamboo mission. I've set up a bamboo factory. I've helped the bureaucracy and the chief minister of Sikkim in setting up a bamboo factory in the midst of a tea garden, which has again created, tertiary, primary, and secondary jobs across the district. So this is something we can do in a large way. And the third point is that whether you can do gobar, an organic gas kind of a system where we call it in Hindi Quechua. So this is basically the manure that insect is found in large numbers in Northeast. So if you do a Quechua farming, it's a huge cash crop. I mean, Quechua farming, the Southeast Asian countries will lap it up. So while the Purakaisa paper talked about many verticals, they actually have missed out on the Quechua farming, which is basically a discovery from my side, having worked with the bureaucrats in Sikkim in doing that. So we have actually found a Quechua farming. We can replicate the same theory here, and then encourage everybody across the plebeian in taking an interest in either this or the allied industries that will come up around it.
Rahul, what are the sectors in Northeast you are looking for where your companies can come in? Would you give a little brief, your expertise in the ecosystem?
It makes me proud to share with you a large project that we had bagged with Karbi Anglong Counseling in Difu. on textiles, not a large project, a few projects on textiles, fisheries, and on setting up of health centers. This was under a memorandum of settlement agreement between the Government of India, MHA, and the Karbi Anglong Council, where people laid down arms and they wanted development of that area. So I would say I won't find too much of a geographical relation between Karbi and Manipur, because Manipur is a full-fledged state having its own process. But as a council, if that council can be in a position to embrace around 20,000 crores for development of that area, I think Manipur can do a lot through my the verticals that we learn, the verticals that we run as an Atepuna. So I wear many hats. One of the major areas of our work where we earn a few dollars across the world is into medicine and pharmaceutical drugs. Now, I was invited by the senior correspondent team here and the medical fraternity of Manipur for the inauguration yesterday of Dr. Dhabli's Babina Hospital, which is regarded as one of the humongous and most celebrated hospital in the Northeast, catering to everybody around here because of his super specialty facilities and his outreach and the way the treatment has been redefined and defined as per the strictest essence of the dictionary. The Chief Minister, the Honorable Chief Minister of Manipur was there yesterday along with the entourage of the ministers that from various departments that also made the August gathering more August. I would say now that the medical fraternity and the vertical has taken shape in Manipur, I would like to broach and moot the idea of telemedicine. We boast of around 250 doctors as part of our company's resource cell. People from across gastroenterology to simple medicine to oncology to surgery uh, to general medicine to cancer drugs to BMT, bone marrow transplant therapies, including CAR T cells. We work with Tata Medical. So I would like to set up probably a supply chain where we can make all this very, very indispensable and expensive drugs easily available to the general public of the state and anybody and everybody that seeks medical treatment. Because to serve humankind is to serve God. Through Dr. Dhabli's chain of hospitals, including the state's medical policy, and by dint of introducing telemedicine, I guess you will not be deprived of the best doctors any time of the day, which we bring in along with the technology. We also make available a lot of OTC drugs to you. We make vitamins which are free in nature, which are distributed across the villages and districts of Chhattisgarh, MP, and West Bengal. The same thing being replicated here in Manipur, which is basically a humble contribution of mine where you don't charge a single paise. And we make, most importantly, we make people confident and we make people assured, free of stress, that if there is an illness, if there's a malaise, there is a way to get out of it. So body is basically nothing but a virtual vehicle which will be well if you treat them well, and at the end of the day is basically belief and confidence. Our doctors amongst us are selfless. I won't call them selfless in terms of not making both men's meat and at the same time serving, but at the end of the day, very, very different packet of medical professionals whom, when they start interacting with the state, you would appreciate that they are as good as seers. I mean, I'm not being humble. So this is my take as my industry comes into Manipur on the medical space. The other spaces will follow its own organic expansion and growth as and when we come in here. Uh, One being the software area, where we actually come in with a lot of hardwares and softwares. At its best, we do cloud offerings. We also do medical instruments other than medical drugs. We do a lot on the plastics. We do a lot on food provisions. We are the supply chain experts across the world, having an Institute of Packaging license where you can transport any food from any part of the world to anywhere.
This is your first visit to Imphal, Manipur. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is my maiden visit to Manipur, for that matter, specifically Imphal. I studied in the hills of Darjeeling, uh, which is contiguous, which is part of West Bengal, contiguous to a city called Siliguri, and I spent my childhood there. We ran, we jumped over the mountains, we caught butterflies. So it's like a deja vu for me coming into Imphal, because although the terrain is a valley, but looking at the mountains, I'm an Himalayan boy, and but looking at the mountains here, I feel I've come back to my own house again. This is on the part of my experience coming into Imphal, and not only Imphal, the any parts of Northeast, be it Wokha, be it Nagaland, be it even these small hill tracts of Assam. Uh, but coming back specifically to any additional feeling that I've probably carried with myself when I go back today is that, uh, you know, the people, the discipline, the kind of, I mean, I have found so much of peace around. I mean, there's a prejudice amongst the mainstream media where it talked about many things, ABC, DFG. Today is not a probably a place or a time or probably even a referral point to talk about all that. Uh, if I were blindfolded and had come into the city and then had tasted the city in a manner which is sense of judgments, I would say, please, I mean, come in. I mean, 1 month will elapse and not realize how happy and how well, how they put it, how well optimized you would have done of the place and its people. Business thrives, business will always be there. But in addition to that, the food, climate is not temperate. At the same time, valley temperatures can also be unpredictable in today's times. But the nights are not young, but the nights are cool. Nights are cold too at this time of the year. And the disciplined police force. I mean, people always on erect. And I have had the experience of seeing police like the Hunchback of Notre Dame across places in India. I'll not put a name to that, and how they actually behave on the road. But here I've seen is like an disciplined, a group of people right up from a school with all the facets of uh, obedience and everything that is getting manifested in the true sense of the meaning of the word. That is number two. Number three is there is always a feeling and a sense of belongingness and absorption. I mean, if you're exchanging an idea with a minister or a secretary, there will be all ears, and they will continuously, they are in the habit of, rediscovering themselves, and also in the process, you also rediscover and reinvent yourself in terms of doing something here. So for me, although this is my maiden visit, I feel I had come back home, and now that things are happening, there will be opportunities for me to come back here again and again. And I wish happiness, health, prospects, and lot of Godspeed for one and all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure being with you and talking to you always. Thank you.